It's been just over 2 days, can you believe that, since President Joe Biden announced he would be dropping out of the presidential race. And 2 days since he endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as his replacement. A lot has happened in that time, to put it mildly. I mean, in less than 3 days, Harris has already secured enough delegates to win the nomination, making her essentially the de facto nominee heading into next month's convention. Her campaign also says that between Sunday afternoon and last night, it raised over $100 million, with the majority of donors giving for the very first time. That's a big deal. That includes the largest single-day fundraising haul in American history. The campaign also says in that same time period, nearly 60,000 folks signed up as volunteers. People were going to be out there door knocking, making phone calls. Harris has shored up support from, she's also shored up support, I should say, from nearly every prominent Democrat, including, just today, the respective party leaders of the House and the Senate.
Kamala Harris and her candidacy has excited and energized the House Democratic Caucus, the Democratic Party, and the nation.
The enthusiasm in this big, diverse, representative party was amazing. It was palpable. You could cut it with a knife.
And just today, Harris made her first official campaign stop. And she did it with a delicious, and I mean delicious, dose of trolling Donald Trump and the Republicans. You know why? Because her first campaign stop today was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is the same city where just last week the Republican Party held their convention. Although Harris's speech, of course, did not feature an authoritarian vision for our country's future. Obviously not. That's not her vision. Nor did it include anyone who just recently left jail. There's no shout-outs to those people. Or Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt. All things that happened last week. It had basically a very different vibe to it.
We believe in a future where everyone has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. A future where no child has to grow up in poverty. Where every worker has the freedom to join a union.
So that response, all of that screaming and cheering, basically captures the feeling of most Democrats over the last few days, which is pretty encouraging, considering that the weeks before that were dominated by painful, gut-wrenching conversations inside the party about the future of a guy they all love, Joe Biden. And once Joe Biden stepped aside and endorsed Vice President Harris, the unity around the task ahead, which is defeating Donald Trump, and the woman who's going to lead it, has also come exploding into public view.
I know this is going to be a strong year with this ticket and the new energy we'll see.
She's going to win. She's young, she's dynamic, she cares deeply about the future of the country.
It was great. It was pretty exciting. 496 votes unanimously. They're so proud of her as a Californian.
So what happens now? Well, for starters, President Biden will give a primetime address to the nation tomorrow evening to explain his decision to step aside and talk about the next 6 months of his presidency, during which time he can get a lot done and do a lot of things. As for Kamala Harris, she will continue to be out on the campaign trail. Hopefully more trolling is in store, we'll see. And a lot of things are going to be taking place behind the scenes at the same time. I mean, she, of course, needs to pick a vice president of her own. And the DNC wants that process to happen quickly, as in within the next 2 weeks, which is very, very fast for a process like this. Harris also has to integrate her team with the Biden team. Now, there's a big advantage there because there's already an apparatus of very smart, talented people who've been up and running for months. And there is a lot to do, but there's no question this will be a smoother transition than any other would have been in this crazy moment. That also doesn't mean everything will be the same. I mean, this is the Harris campaign now. She's free to differ from her predecessor on policy if she wants to. We'll see. That will be an interesting part of the next couple of weeks to watch. She has different superpowers and different areas she will need to work on to appeal to voters than President Biden. I also think it's fair to say that the campaign is not only focusing on its proactive message and a Harris presidency, but its attacks on Donald Trump, which we saw on full display this afternoon in that same speech.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. I promise you, I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week.
Now, she clearly didn't hold back there, which may or may not have given the Trump campaign some pause. Although, for what it's worth, the ex-president claimed today that he is willing to debate Harris. And Harris, of course, will also have to deal with the bad faith attacks from Trump and his fellow Republicans. And I'm betting a lot of them will be gross and racist and misogynistic, as you might expect. Although, thus far, over the last couple of days, they've kind of struggled to figure out exactly how to go after her. Remember, every ad, every digital campaign, every stump speech was centered around Joe Biden, the guy they were running against, and a lot of it around his age specifically. That's the big part of what they had there. And now they're running a convicted criminal against a female prosecutor who happens to be nearly 20 years younger than Donald Trump. So, of course, they have to throw out the old playbook. And again, they will find new lines of attack, I promise you. There is still a long road ahead. This is going to be hard. It's going to be an absolute grind. But so far, Kamala Harris seems up for the challenge. And it's clear that the Democratic Party is pretty much behind her every step of the way. David Plouffe served as campaign manager for Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign, and he is the co-host of the podcast, The Campaign Managers. Claire McCaskill is a former Democratic senator from Missouri. They know a lot of things about campaigns, and they're joining me now. All right, David, I mean, we're going to talk about the Harris campaign, but there's been a lot of reporting. We have to ask you about it. It's the elephant in the room, or maybe the donkey. I mean, there's reporting that you've been asked to join the campaign. People out there may be like, please, David, join the campaign. Have you made a decision about whether you're going to join the campaign?
Well, Jen, you know very well, when there's a change like this, I think a lot of us that works in politics, a lot of our former colleagues, even people in the private sector, you know, there's rumors about who may come in. All I know is what you know is that Jen O'Malley Dillon has ran a great campaign in 20 that defeated Donald Trump. She's built a great effort here. And so she'll have to figure out what help she needs. I think all of us in the country are up for helping where we can. But the good news is the excitement that you see, and I've seen it on my phone, I'm sure you've seen it on your phone. You know, we're seeing it in real numbers in terms of volunteer signups, in terms of donations, in terms of enthusiasm. And that's great. And because I think she is off to a good start, that's important because we don't have many days left. Every day you have a good day is pretty important. But the battle here, I think, is to define herself. It might be strange to say about a vice president, but most of the people that will decide this election don't know about the tough fight she took on as a prosecutor or as attorney general, may not know about her biography, and then define the race, which ultimately needs to be a choice between what would 4 years of Donald Trump look like for American families and what would Kamala Harris bring to those families. And I think that's a debate she's well situated to win. So as you said, it's a long grind. But really, really promising start so far. And we'll see. I mean, Trump said he wasn't going to debate 2 days ago. Now he's saying he'll debate many times. Obviously, he's a slippery character. So we'll see ultimately. But either way, I mean, I think it's good for Americans when candidates debate. So I think Kamala Harris should say, I'll see you on September 10th. And hopefully he'll show up. And if he doesn't, he needs to be made to pay a maximal price for that, which he won't like. And I agree with you. The last thing I'll say is they had plenty of time to prepare for this scenario. Like if Harris is the nominee, what's our first minute look like? What's our first hour look like? What's our first day look like? And so far, it's a pretty pathetic effort. Eventually they'll get their act together. But I was surprised by that because they had plenty of time to prepare for this contingency.
No question about it. And they're a little all over the place. So, Claire, let me ask you, because one of the reasons you're so great to talk to is you're always a straight shooter. And the energy over the last couple of days has been bananas. I mean, the money, the enthusiasm, the volunteers, how unified it is. But this is going to be hard. It's going to be a grind. I think people need to prepare themselves for that. So what are you know tough campaigns. What wakes you up at night as you're thinking about this campaign and what the Harris campaign and what people out there who love her and are rooting for her need to prepare for?
Well, we were facing two big problems. We were facing an enthusiasm problem, and we were facing a problem that was one that was inherent in the candidate, in that there were a lot of people, they were formerly called the double haters. Well, both of those problems are greatly diminished now. So the campaign, I believe that what they're going to be able to do with enthusiasm is going to somewhat be on autopilot. My sense is that the women of America, that young Black voters, that a lot of working people who are energized by this idea of this historic presidency, I just think that's going to solve itself. So now we've just got to really concentrate on those voters that really didn't like either candidate before and convince 2 or 3% of those, the ones that maybe voted for Trump and then voted for Biden, to come back home to a party that they can respect. And I got to tell you, I'm with David on this. I am shocked how badly the Republicans have handled this. The panic. I mean, it really has been panic with a dose of racism. This idea calling her a DEI hire. I mean, all saying a DEI hire is she's not a white man. That's all that is. That is shorthand for Kamala Harris is not a white man. And that is so offensive. And then, whoops, our guy is old now. They're like, oh, wait a minute. He's the one who looks really old and really out of shape and really rambling and really doesn't have his act together. So I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but it just got a lot easier than when it was before.